Morning, Adrian.
You were not quite, but almost in that scenario. Will you set the scene for us? It's 2011, I think it's January, February?
January 2011. All the buzz in the GA and sporting world was around these Dublin early morning training sessions that Pat Gilroy put on. Dublin, obviously, 16 years since they won in All-Ireland. Very different picture than now.
And been to the semi-finals the year previous.
Yeah, beaten by Cork. And this was the big change that they put in, and everyone was talking about it. From what I recall, someone had gone down, a photographer had gone down and taken pictures. So the pictures, they didn't have pictures of the training, but they needed some copy to go with it. And someone had, I can't remember who it was, had the bright idea, why don't we send someone down and just watch? Because they trained on Alfie-Burn Road. I don't think they're there anymore, which is open. Like anyone who drives through Clontarf can see Alfie-Burn Road. It's a wide open space. So I was the newest man in, probably the least well known of anyone on the staff, and probably the most naive and gullible to be taught. So, and also my parents lived not too far away, so they had the idea of, why don't we send the new guy?
So what happens? The editor calls you in and is like, listen,
I have an idea. Yeah. And I probably wasn't as aware of the access stuff that we kind of anyone who goes to press conferences and stuff in journalism now knows that, like, these are things, there are parameters you're supposed to go. I was just, why not? So I was, the idea was, go down, just have a look and report on what they do, because it was like, are they flogging them? Is just, they had this mystique, I think, and the idea was to break the mystique, and the fact that they had January's a quiet time for GA anyway. We had the pictures were good, and why not? So,
so do you go down beforehand and do a bit of a recce and see, here's where I'm going to perch myself, here's the tree I'm going to climb?
No wire cutters, no binoculars, no recce, just. I got up and I used the cover of Dog Walker. So I got my parents' dog. I stayed at my parents' house. I got up it must have been 5:30, because they're about 25-minute walk down to it. Woke up Guinness, the now sadly departed dog, and put on as many clothes as I could, because it was absolutely freezing. And I broke my glasses over Christmas, and I was wearing contacts, so I put in my contacts as well. And wandered down. Halfway down, it was so cold. I don't know if you guys have contact lenses, but I had daily disposables. They dried out. One of them dried out and fell out.
Right.
So I was like, oh shit, I'm then down to one now. And I got down, and as I walked into the Alfie-Burn Road, obviously one of the players or management turned in as well. So I kind of spotted like a copse of trees on the left and headed for them. And my other contact fell out, and I caught it and put it back in. And if I hadn't caught it,
right, the story
would never have appeared. So we made a beeline for these trees, and myself and Guinness, and took out my notepad and basically.
Was Guinness a quiet dog, or was he?
He was quiet that morning. It was probably too early for him, but that was one of my risks of exposure. Was that while he was my cover, he might have blown my cover at the same time. Yeah. But no, he managed to stay quiet. I think it was too early for him as well.
I presume, because it's the people, I don't know if a lot of people will be familiar with the article from 7 or 8 years ago, and we'll tweet it out as well, Tommy, as well, I think, just give people a bit of a flavour if they haven't seen it. But there's a lot of detail in it in terms of this 5-minute segment, and here's what happens 10 minutes later. So you've got your notepad out, presumably, in your...
Well, I had 1,000 words to fill, and they weren't doing that much. So I think what was striking was the mundanity of it.
Right.
It was just like any training session, not that we get to see much training, but like any training session that anyone will be involved in. Again, there was a mystique about it, and you're going down and wondering, what are they doing? Are they doing, like flogging lads with laps, or it was just a training session. And like Gilroy explained it later as being just to fit into people's days, like get it done, and then they have their evenings back. And I think they might have been doubling up at that time of year, but it was partly commitment, but it was also partly fitting in around. It's an easier time to get to Clontarf than 6 o'clock in the evening. I think one of the most striking things, I think Malachy Clerkin picked it up in his book later that year after they'd gone on and won the All-Ireland, was that Cluxton was the first player onto the pitch. Just like a little thing. And the next day he might have been the last player on the pitch, but that day he was
from
first
what we
on.
Believe, it's first man.
And that was before John Lennor's book, around like that. So he was on setting the standard. Mickey Whelan, who was I presume, is still in the 70s, I think, was out there at 10 to 6 putting out cones. Gilroy was, but it was just quiet. It was hard working, but it was just drills. It was there was nothing remarkable about it, except for the fact that it was 6 in the morning and it was dark and it was cold, and they were just they just got on with it.
Did you get an adrenaline rush from hiding in the bushes watching the dogs?
It was more, you're just afraid of getting caught. Like, you're afraid of making a noise, even though like they're all shouting at each other. Once they start, I think I remember it was quite quiet at the start, as it would be. Anyone who goes to the gym at 7 in the morning or like that, any of those classes that you do, no, it's all like you leave feeling great, but you first appear absolutely wrecked. So it was quiet at the start, but once they got going, it was normal. So there's no, they didn't. And it was dark, so like they were under floodlights. There was no real, but you've got that fear of being caught. So yeah, I probably did.
Were you hidden from view? Because they couldn't see you, obviously.
I was in amongst trees. I don't know what they could say. I don't think so. I think I was spotted going in, but they just thought I was.
Were you worried that somebody else out walking the dog or out for a general walk would see this guy sort of crouched in
kind of, but it's kind of off the, like it's just off a main road, and I don't think you would take your dog, and it was like no one else up. Like, I have a dog now, people don't get up and walk their dogs that hour, but it was it was genuinely so cold. So yeah, like once I got in under the trees, the dog could have done me, but the dog was grand. The dog was quite happy just to, like, he wasn't used to being walked at that early in the morning either. So
and like there was no, you sort of get in and out under cover, and at no point were you sort of rumbled or there was no interaction. You'd went about your business afterwards.
They all just headed for the exit. I don't think, like, I got the impression they didn't use the showers right in there. They just got back in their cars and headed off, and the exit wasn't where I was. So. Right. No, I had no interaction with them. Like, the only time I could have got spotted was when I walked in that time. The cars came in behind me, and apparently Pat Gilroy may have been in one of those cars and warned the squad that there's some dodgy fellas around. So watch the wallets. Or something. Conor McKeown tweeted that yesterday when someone, I think Dennis Hurley found the article and put it up. Yeah. So. But we found out about that later on, like at the end of the season. I'm not sure if the Indo ever got a phone call. I wouldn't been on their radar at all. I was quite new into the game.
Had you been covering any dubs after that? Had you any
did a couple of press conferences.
And would he have known?
I was sitting at the back. I would have been covering all sports. I wasn't one of the main guys doing GAA, and I don't think they knew who I was. So I think if it had been, it's probably one of the reasons I was chosen. If it had been one of the lads they knew, it might have had consequences. But like, I probably would have been in a League of Ireland game that Friday and a bit of AIL on the Saturday. That's kind of what I was doing at the time.
So when you saw a spy from Leeds United showing up the Derby County training ground, were you like, fair play? I respect game, respects game right here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I don't think it's that unusual. I think it's unusual that they get caught, but I think across all sports, we had the fella up the tree down in Kerry that the Donegal lad a couple of years ago. Allegedly, is it? Well, moved. That's terribly sad. Act of vandalism against nature, isn't it? Like, but I mean, like, Ireland have a triple reinforced green mesh around their training sessions in Carton House. There's got to be a reason for that. They're obviously afraid that someone's watching them.
It must be. I mean, it can't be difficult with all the modern technology that exists. If you wanted to, I mean, I can't imagine a green fence would. If I wanted to see what was going on, I'm sure I'd be able to find a way.
I'm sure Eddie Jones has a drone that he can just fly over.
A drone might be a little unsubtle, like you
hear. Oh, what's this?
I've heard stuff about, like, coaches getting planes diverted so they don't fly over stadiums for captain run and stuff like that. Like, coaches are ultra paranoid. I'd say this Bielsa thing has just sent a rocket through all the English coaches without saying, like, they're doubling up on their security and stuff. And I'm sure it's the same in all sports, because this stuff does happen. There's obviously, for all that Bielsa said, there obviously is some sort of competitive advantage in doing it. It's someone like me, I was just watching and recounting. I didn't really glean anything from it from a tactical point of view, but I'm sure if someone who knew a bit more about Gaelic football they might have picked up something.
Just one last thing is Henry Winter was kind of got a bit of criticism this week for a bit of a double standard, criticising the kind of intelligence that they were trying to seek from a Leeds United perspective, despite the fact that he tried to get England teams from in previous World Cups to publish for his newspaper. Have you heard any other rugby hacks that have gone to that length to actually do a Henry Winter on the Irish rugby team?
No, I don't think so. There's the odd open training session that you get to watch, but I'm not aware of it. But when it's an open training session, or when you're in somewhere where you can see training, you'll obviously have a look, or you'll watch the 10-15 minutes that you can, and maybe dwell for a little while longer, as much as you can. But at this stage, I think they used to watch it all the time and used to glean stuff off it. But unfortunately, in the modern era, it's not welcome. And I'd say Dublin might have ramped up their security as well. I think Peter Sweeney was invited. He was in the Star at the time, invited back the next year to try. I think to ward off the unwelcome ones. Yeah, it was kind of
bring one in and sort of do a false session.
Yeah, exactly. So, because I mean, Joe, whenever in rugby, whenever they have the open sessions, they don't do anything.
No, same at the international football team. They just come in and they do a bit of a warm up, and then once the serious stuff starts, they get the hacks to
But they do these open sessions. They're doing one Belfast, one in the Aviva this month, but they don't do any of their team shape stuff. They just do. It's a full session and it's quite committed against the 20s and stuff. But he knows.
You've ruined it for all of us, Rory, is what you're saying.
I have, yeah, no, and I apologise to everyone.
You're going to come back to us in a few minutes, I think, to chat a little bit rugby.
Why not?
And John Alan Quinlan. That's coming up very shortly.